Greetings everyone, and welcome to the belated opening of the Reed Gallery exhibition, A Splendid Gathering, Medieval and Renaissance Manuscripts from the Reed Collection. This exhibition was originally scheduled to open in May, but of course was postponed due to the lockdown. There was no real pressure was put on me to reschedule the exhibition quickly, but we have a schedule now of 2 per year, and two we will have, I insisted, so we finally got over the line in early August. A special thank you today to the bindery team, to Kath and Jasmine. Thanks also to Bernie Cornford of DCC, who did the graphic design for this exhibition, and for Malcolm for helping me out with the online exhibition, and for our team here for all the vigorous setup, and I don't think I could have done that without them. And now to introduce our speaker today, Associate Professor Saman Marshall. Saman is Senior Lecturer in the Department of English at the University of Otago, where she specialises in medieval literature, including works in Middle English, medieval women's literature, paleography and codicology. That's enough from me. Saman.
Thank you so much, Julian. Yes, indeed, my name is Saman Marshall. I'm Associate Professor at the University of Otago, where, among other things, I teach medieval literature. And I'm so extremely grateful to have been asked to speak this evening to celebrate this exhibition, A Splendid Gathering, right here at the Dunedin Public Library. The collection of Alfred and Isabel Reed housed in this library is an extraordinary monument of collecting, and we are so privileged that this collection is right here and so well preserved and so available to the public. What I'm going to do is take some time to mention some of the stories about Alfred Reed and his book collecting. These are stories that you probably all know, but they bear repeating because they remind us of how extraordinarily lucky we are to have this amazing collection right here in Dunedin. Now, I'll be quite honest, much of this I have taken from Doherty's marvellous 2005 work, Books and Boots, which I highly recommend. So we know about Reed, the publisher, the importer of religious texts for Sunday schools, the writer and editor of New Zealand Books, but Reed's collecting of rare books and manuscripts begins in 1907. Settled in Dunedin with a steady income and a sparing lifestyle, the 31-year-old Reed was browsing through a London antiquarian bookseller's catalogue in 1907, saw the Beer's New Testament and the affordable price, and made the purchase that started him on the road to building up a collection of manuscripts and printed Bibles. He was not collecting for collecting's sake. Rather, his intention was to trace the history of the English Bible and its antecedents by collecting actual examples of each major development. For Reed, collecting rare manuscripts and books was not an act of personal avarice and possession. In 1925, he divided his Bible collection between the theological colleges of the Methodist and Presbyterian churches, Trinity Methodist Theological College in Auckland and Knox Theological College here in Dunedin. With the disposal of his Bible collection in 1925, Reed decided to build up a new collection with the idea that it would eventually go to the Dunedin Public Library. The library had opened in 1908 in a superb building in Moray Place, courtesy of Andrew Carnegie, but with few books. By 1948, the 72-year-old Reed had decided that the time was right to physically hand over his collection to the Dunedin Public Library, with Reed stipulating that it be known as the Alfred and Isabel Reed Collection. A significant part of the collection was the Bible collection, which was built up to become, as Reed quite fairly put it, in all probability the most comprehensive collection of its kind in the Southern Hemisphere. The Dunedin City Council's 1948 undertaking to provide suitable space for the adequate housing and display of the collection proved to vex the council. Periodically for the next 30 years, Reed would remind the council of the undertaking it had made in accepting the gift. By 1966, he was telling the council that if it did not provide adequate housing for the collection before his demise, he would personally come back and haunt them. Bree did not live to see the current library buildings opened in 1981, but I hope his ghost is satisfied. So the items that are on display in this exhibition show an extraordinary breadth in terms of materials, age, style, and scripts and ownership. I'll mention just a few of my favourites, and I'd like to mention too how these items are so valuable for my university students learning about medieval manuscripts for the first time. I feel so extraordinarily lucky to be able to show these manuscripts to my students, and that they are able to learn from original documents, which is such a unique thing to do. So the oldest item in the collection here in this exhibition is the bifolium from the New Testament books of Matthew, Mark and John, dating from the 10th century, written in uncial lettering. I'll just say that again, from the 10th century this is. This is an item I enjoy bringing my students along to see, but interestingly, it generates almost no response from them. And I think it's because they truly cannot comprehend that something so old is sitting right in front of them. It usually takes a few days before they start asking, was it really that old? Is that actually what we saw there? And I think this is understandable. If you think about it, it's really very rare to encounter objects in New Zealand that are around about 1,000 years old or so. Now, the next item I want to talk about is my actual personal favourite of this collection. This is the library's earliest and most precious portion of a Bible in English. It's part of the Gospels of the Wycliffe translation of the Bible, perhaps written around about 1450, of which 45 of the original 178 leaves are missing. About 200 copies or so, or portions of the Wycliffe manuscript Bibles have survived, of which only 16 are outside the British Library. They include the Dunedin Public Library copy, purchased by Reed at Sotheby's in 1956. That around 200 copies or partial copies of the Wycliffe Bible have survived is a testament to its popularity. Geoffrey Chaucer's Canterbury Tales, for instance, survives only in 83 manuscripts and fragments. But the political and religious turmoil of the 14th and 15th centuries surrounding the Wycliffe Bible makes this work quite remarkable. At a time when preaching in English could result in imprisonment or burning at stake, these Bibles were sought after and preserved as items of value and importance. This item is also my favourite for its stark beauty. It is not an elaborately illuminated work. The decorations are fairly simple, but the quality and the clarity of the handwriting is remarkable. It is like taking a step back in time, because even after more than 500 years, this work is extremely readable. This manuscript always does get a response from my students, because after looking at all the other beautiful manuscripts that seem so indecipherable that they forget they're looking at writing, this one they can actually read. The English is clear and the writing straightforward, and being able to read it transforms the manuscript from a decorative artwork into a practical object with an actual use. Now, a note for you for your diaries. Next Wednesday is World Calligraphy Day, and I'll be getting my current students to have a go at cutting a quill pen from a feather and learning to write with it. It's a lot of fun, but I do this so that my students, when they look at manuscripts like these, they can begin to see the extraordinary amount of workmanship involved in creating these items. And the Wycliffe Bible fragment is, because they can read it, brings this to life for them. So there you go, something to note for your diaries. Another item on display that I thought I would mention, because it's rather pertinent for us today, and that is the Mantel Book of Hours. This is a 15th century work from possibly the Netherlands. It's a collection of prayers in Latin, as you would expect of a Book of Hours, but it has later additions in Middle English inserted throughout. One of these insertions is a Middle English prayer against the plague. It goes like this: "Whosoever saith this prayer following in the worship of God and Saint Roch shall not die of the pestilence," which is, whosoever saith this prayer following in the worship of God in St. Roch, shall not die of the pestilence. It seems like a very useful document for us. Now the final item that I'd like to mention to you that you'll see on display is an original leaf from the first book printed in Europe, the rare Gutenberg Bible, completed around about 1455 at Mainz in Germany. Of the 200 to 300 copies believed to have been printed, no more than 45 are known to have survived, making it one of the more rare and valuable books in the world. Now, many of the Bibles that Reed purchased have a romantic history, and the Gutenberg Bible leaf, for example, had come from a Bible that had already lost many of its leaves when it was discovered in a village near Mainz in southwestern Germany in 1828, in the home of a man who was quite unaware of its value. To him, it was merely a useless old second-hand book, written in a language he could not read, and was apparently being destroyed page by page for various household purposes, such as lighting the fire. Now, I'll be honest, I don't know if that story is true, because I've heard many similar stories about manuscripts over the years, but it's still quite extraordinary. Reed wanted his rare books and manuscripts collection to be popular, widely available to the general public, and a source of education and inspiration. Reed's desire to make his collection widely available extended to the controversial practice of breaking up original manuscripts in order to present single leaves to libraries and other institutions and to friends. He had no qualms about this. He and the Dunedin Public Library had benefited from others engaging in the practice, and he wanted others to benefit. The most dramatic example of Reed engaging in this practice involved a large 14th century Latin manuscript of a portion of the New Testament, which he bought in about 1925. He scattered widely the 139 leaves. He gave 9 to Knox Theological College here in Dunedin, 1 to Otago University, the binding of 47 leaves to Trinity Methodist Theological College in Auckland, 8 leaves to the Church of Christ Bible College in Dunedin, which are now in Knox, 8 to the Baptist College in Auckland, and later a larger fragment of 66 leaves to the Dunedin Public Library. He subsequently removed 4 leaves from the Dunedin Public Library portion and presented 1 specially mounted and framed to the Otago University Library as Dunedin Public Library's centennial gift to the university in 1969. Reed did not regard the Alfred and Isabel Reed collection and his near 50-year involvement with the Dunedin Public Library as a gift of something. Rather, he felt that he was giving something back. It was, in his mind, little enough return for the wealth of friendship and goodwill extended to Bell and himself over the decades following their arrival in Dunedin in the 1890s. Reed's passion for collecting medieval manuscripts directly influenced the career of Christopher de Hamel. Reed took a shine to this spotty Dunedin schoolboy, who became enamoured of the medieval treasures in the Reed collection. De Hamel, of course, went on to become an international authority on medieval manuscripts. I had an email from Christopher de Hamel just recently, enthusiastic as ever about the Dunedin manuscripts collection. Echoing what Reed himself had said many years earlier, he said, "Dunedin has more collections of medieval manuscripts than any other city in the entire southern hemisphere. The university, Selwyn, Knox, the art gallery, and not least, the Reed collection in the public library. It is indeed a reminder from a world expert that we should celebrate and value the remarkable items in the Alfred